Slavery is a very big subject. I have in my home an entire bookcase of nothing things but books about slavery in various parts of the world, various times of history. And the sad fact is that slavery has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere,
yes,
but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery, it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth, and between and cross hauling, as they say in the railroads, because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that, put together. But nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them. Here we have intellectuals who can imagine a different history from the rest of the world, even though it's so similar to the rest of the world.
We have our own myth makers in the African American historical establishment. All the Egyptians look like Michael Jordan. All our people were black gods and kings. You know, we were not complicitous in the slave trade. There wouldn't be a slave trade. Africans sold other Africans to white people. That was the slave trade. That's the first thing we honestly have to admit. Remember the story of Livingston, Dr. Livingston? Sure. The reason that was so important is that almost no white men had penetrated the interior of Africa. What was there? No roads, snakes, mosquitoes, death, malaria, right? The white people were along the coast. It was black kingdoms like Queen Njinga's kingdom in Angola. What's now Angola? Ghana, Dahomey. They grew rich from the slave trade, selling other Africans. They would go and wage wars just to sell other black people to white people. This is something we've been so ashamed about, we pretend that it's not true. It is the nasty, dirty secret of African American history. We are just as corrupt and despicable as any other people. And if we have the right to oppress, we will oppress just like the white man oppressed us. That is human nature. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And the only way to overcome that is to be honest about it. Is to be honest about it, admit the truth, and then all try to do better. As my main man, guy I admire so much, Cornel West, says, we're all recovering racists. We're recovering. We're all recovering racists.
See, but and I let this thing play on just because I think it's important. It's important to let them hear it all out, hear the full context of what both Sowell and Henry Lewis are saying. Now, I disagree, with his assertion in the end. Like Cornel West would say, we're all recovering racists. In his statement, he's admitting that has nothing to do with race, and that is, I think, what is the most important point about what we're talking about here. We're not talking about that these were not atrocities, that these were not horrible, horrible things that still go on today, albeit at a much smaller scale. But that the notion, right, especially in the United States of America, right, that we have that the slave trade took a racial connotation behind it because when it came to this country, that's how it was divided, and that's because it still wasn't divided to that point because there were even black slave owners here as well, So it's just one of those things that I just believe it's just a massive campaign to just get wedges between groups of people, to try to divide them, to try to get them to not look over here at the shiny object where the entire middle class of America is struggling and hanging on by a thread while everybody else is upper echelon of society is thriving. That's what it's about. That's what it's about, because it has nothing to do with race. That's my take from this, right? My take from this is, the white people along the coastline coming in their ships, they couldn't get these slaves, right? The Africans that were going at war with each other and trading slaves and doing that, that's how they became, rich and powerful. And so, and the other thing is, I believe if I don't know if my numbers are right, but I think only around 10% of all the North American, the transatlantic slave trade, only about 10% of those slaves made it to the United States. The vast majority went to the Caribbean and South America. So again, this is just it's a cudgel that politicians use, that whoever wants to use it, right? It's just something that you can beat people over the head with and get them to divide along a certain line, and it's divide and conquer, right? It's a saying that's a war tactic for a reason, right? Because you can't fight a united front as well as you can divided people. So what do you just get them to divide over these stupid things that we have going on, right? The culture war that's going on in America is that it's a product of nonsense, right? Like if you ask the vast majority of people that are raising a family, if they give a shit, they don't, right? But they're being told that they have to, and that's being pushed, and yeah, there are racist people out there. There are serial killers out there. There's everything under the sun you can find. Does that mean that it's a problem at scale? Right? That's the difference. Is it a problem at scale? Are you going to, for the most part, encounter someone like this through your day-to-day? Right? That's what you have to be concerned about. And the answer is no. The answer is, it depends upon where you live, for the most part, right? But for the most part, the answer is absolutely no. You're not going to find someone that's so outwardly racist against you that, or even deceptively racist against you, that they're going to be subverting everything that you're trying to do. And that is what's being painted, and it creates this boogeyman and this, like when you tell your kids when they're growing up. I don't know if you guys do, but I know I did. Oh, I have, you have video cameras everywhere. Why do you do that? So that they self-police, right? So that they think they're being watched. There's this omnipresence of something that's out there, and that in this scenario would be systemic racism, right? Because that's out there in the ether, it's just floating around. Then I can't do what I need to do, or that's what's making me act a certain way or affecting me in a particular way. But this is a fascinating video. Henry Louis Gates is obviously well respected, and Thomas Sowell is also extremely well respected, albeit from another side. And that's why I thought it was really important to get to show you guys this clip. I know they played it in its entirety without interrupting. But if you get a chance, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot. I just want to bring these videos like this out to people, have a quick discussion, talk about it in the comments. Let me know what you think. And I'll respond to every comment. Guys, thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next one.